Today we're looking at 4 beautiful ways to play humble and kind, from easy to intermediate options, including 2 strumming patterns and 2 fingerpicking patterns.
You know there's a light that glows by the front door. Don't forget the keys under the mat. When childhood stars shine, always stay humble and kind. Let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind.
Now throughout this lesson, I'll be using my concert electric uke with low G tuning because it sounds really beautiful on this instrument. But you could follow along just as well with an acoustic uke and with high G tuning. Just keep in mind that if you do have high G tuning, your 4th string will be 1 octave higher than mine, so the patterns will sound slightly different on your instrument, particularly the fingerpicking patterns. Now, one of the great things about this song that makes it relatively easy to play is that it only uses 3 chords that repeat over and over throughout the song. So let's take a look at how to play these 3 chord shapes. Now throughout this lesson, I'll be using my capo on the 3rd fret. This allows me to play chords that are in the key of C, but the capo moves us into the key of E flat. This makes it easier for me to sing the lower notes. Now you can follow along either with or without a capo. So with a capo on the 3rd fret, you'll be in the key of E flat along with me. And without a capo, you'll be in the key of C. Now to use our capo, we're pretending that the nut has moved up to the 3rd fret. So this becomes our new 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, and so on. Now let's look at the 3 chords that are used throughout the song. The first chord is C. Here we have our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. If you prefer, you can use your pinky. Then our next chord is A minor. Here we have our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. And then our 3rd chord is F. Moving from A minor to F, we're going to keep our middle finger in place, and we're going to add our index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. Now throughout this song, we'll play this chord progression over and over, going from C to A minor to F and back to C. Next, we'll take a look at our 4 patterns and how to apply them to the song. Now, each of our 4 patterns consists of 6 beats, so they are interchangeable. Here's pattern 1. This is our easier strumming pattern. Here the strumming is down, up, down, down, up, down. Down, up, down, down, up, down. The rhythm of this pattern is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now let's look at how to apply this pattern to the song. Looking at the first 3 lines of verse 1, we'll play our pattern 1 time on each chord. So starting with line 1, we have 2 C chords. So we'll play our pattern twice on C. Then in line 2, we have 2 A minor chords. Then in line 3, we start with 2 F chords. And then we finish line 3 with 2 C chords. This same chord progression continues throughout the entire song. Now let's look at our 2nd strumming pattern. We have some faster strums in the middle of this pattern, so here's how the pattern looks at a slower tempo. Down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then adding in the rhythm. 1 and 2 and here's how we apply the second pattern to our chord progression that repeats throughout the song. For example, if we take a look at our introduction, we start off with 2 C chords, then we go to A minor for 2 patterns, then to F for 2 patterns, and we finish with 2 patterns on C. If you're finding this lesson helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you'd like to download the song sheet for Humble and Kind, including the chords, lyrics, and all 4 patterns, you can do so from my Patreon page. You'll find the link down below in the video description. Now let's look at pattern 3. This is our first finger picking pattern. Here we're starting by picking the 4th string with our thumb, then the 3rd string with our index finger, and then strings 1 and 2 together with our middle and ring fingers. Then we'll repeat that for the second half of the pattern. The rhythm of this pattern is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now let's apply this 3rd pattern to our repeating chord progression. Let's look at the first 3 lines of our chorus. We'll play our pattern twice on C, then in line 2 we'll play our pattern twice on A minor, in line 3 we'll go to our F chord for 2 patterns, and then back to C for 2 patterns. Next, here's our 4th pattern. And now at a slower tempo. We'll start by picking strings 4 down to 1 with our thumb, index finger, middle finger, and ring finger. Then we'll go back to string 3 with our index finger, string 2 with our middle finger, and then we finish playing strings 4, 3, and 2 with our thumb, index finger, and middle finger. The rhythm of this pattern is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and. Here's how we apply this 4th pattern to our repeating chord progression. As an example, let's look at the first 3 lines of the 2nd verse. We start with 2 patterns on C, then in line 2 we go to 2 patterns on A minor, then in line 3 we go to 2 patterns on F, and then 2 patterns on C. Now that you've learned the chords and the 4 patterns, I want to share with you my favorite way to play this song by alternating between patterns, as well as some bonus intermediate options. Now, I really like to alternate between our strumming patterns and between our finger picking patterns. So if we start with our strumming pattern, alternating between patterns 1 and 2 would look like this. So counting this out, starting with pattern 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then moving into pattern 2, 1, 2, 3, here's how it sounds to apply this to our repeating chord progression, alternating between patterns 1 and 2. Starting with C, then A minor, then F, then back to C, I also like to alternate between our finger picking patterns. So starting with pattern 3, and then moving into pattern 4. So here's how it sounds to play our chord progression, alternating between patterns 3 and 4. So starting on our C chord, we'll play pattern 3, then pattern 4, then A minor, then F, then back to C, now you can experiment with going back and forth between patterns 1 and 2 and patterns 3 and 4. And it doesn't have to be exactly alternating. You could play pattern 1 a few times and then throw in pattern 2, or if you're finger picking, you could play pattern 3 several times and then throw in pattern 4. The main reason that I like to go back and forth between the patterns is to have some variation in the rhythm. Now for an additional challenge, let's look at some optional grace notes that you can use on patterns 1 and 3 in the instrumental sections of the song. So the introduction and the interlude when we're not singing any lyrics. Starting with our C chord, we can do either a hammer-on or a slide from the 2nd to the 3rd fret. So if we do this at the beginning of our first strumming pattern, it will sound like this. If you prefer to do a slide rather than a hammer-on, then you'll start with your ring finger on the 2nd fret, and on your first down strum, you'll slide to the 3rd fret. We can also do this with pattern 3, our finger picking pattern, when we get to the first string. Next we'll look at our A minor chord, and here we have the option of doing a hammer-on onto the 4th string. So we can do this to start pattern 1, or we can start pattern 3 with a hammer-on on the 4th string. And next we have our F chord. Here we have the option of hammering onto the 2nd string using our index finger, or to take it one step further, you can hammer on with both your index and your middle fingers on the 2nd and 4th strings. So here's how this looks with pattern 1. And then with pattern 3, we're going to hammer onto the 2nd string when we pick strings 1 and 2 together. Next we're moving into our play along, where I'll play and sing through the entire song, and you can play along with me. Now feel free to use just one pattern, or you can alternate between them. I'm going to alternate between our strumming patterns 1 and 2 and our finger picking patterns 3 and 4, just as we've covered in this lesson, and I'll throw in some of the bonus intermediate options as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
There's a light that glows by the front door. Don't forget the keys under the mat. When childhood stars shine, always stay humble and kind. Go to church, go Visit Grandpa every chance that you can. It won't be wasted time. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, and don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. When those dreams you're dreaming come to you, when the work you put in's realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. Don't expect a free ride from no one. Don't hold a grudge or a chip, and here's why. Bitterness keeps you from flying. Always stay humble and kind. Know the difference between sleeping with someone and sleeping with someone you love. I love you ain't no pickup line, so always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, and don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. When those dreams you're dreaming come to you, when the work you put in's realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. When it's hot, eat a root beer popsicle. Shut off the AC and roll the windows down. Let that summer sun shine. Always stay humble and kind. Don't take for granted the love this life gives you. When you get where you're going,